Namaskaram, hooray!
Namaskaram.
How are you today?
Very good. It's an honor to have you here, Sadhguru. It's been a long day.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I
Wonderful, even to be in Spain virtually, it's a wonderful idea. And my good morning and namaskarams to all the audience who are there. What time of the day is it for you? I think you must be about 7, 8 hours away from us, earlier than us.
it's 5 p.m. here. It's been a long day,
Oh,
but,
okay.
but I think we're gonna have a majestic closing with your presence here. Thank you for joining the Fourth Sustainability Congress. Sadhguru, I would like to start, we've been discussing the whole day that sustainability is about people. And one of the main issues is how do we inspire more people to change their habits, their mentality, and join the sustainability, building this sustainable world?
Namaskaram. If I go into a very unpopular subject, is it okay?
Yes.
Because this is not about satisfying everybody, this is about a solution, this is about sustainability. Well, we can bring about small incremental changes in people's behavior which will definitely help to bring a certain amount of awareness about the issue, and also it will add to the solution a little bit. But the most important thing is you use the word more people. The important thing is just this, to understand. One thing is our ability to do things in the world has been greatly enhanced in the last 100 years. That probably in terms of consumption, in terms of activity, what 1,000 people could do today, one person is doing. So when this is the case, one important thing we need to understand is, in the beginning of 20th century, our populations were only 1.6 billion people. Today we are around 8 billion people. By 2050, United Nations is making an estimate that we could be 9.8 billion people. So we need to understand, once we have come here as human beings, everything that we do has to be done consciously. How we eat, how we sit, how we stand, how we act, how we work, how we relate to each other, all this is possible in a conscious manner rather than as a compulsive reaction as every other creature does instinctively. We don't have to act like that, that is the significance of being human, that we can be conscious response to our lives. So having said that, definitely human reproduction also should be a conscious process, it's very, very important. And we are moving in that way, but maybe we will move so slowly that we will naturally invite disasters, because some of the responsible scientists are saying that, by 2065, there could be a certain collapse of human population. One thing is due to food shortages, civil unrest, and microbial collapse within the microbial ecosystem. So, when nature does these things, it will do it very cruelly to us. It's very important that having invested so much in infrastructure, information, education, it is time we do things consciously, that whatever our problems, we must address them consciously and find conscious solutions. So in this context, when you said more people, I would say no. Instead of just making a prediction by 2050 we will be in 10 billion people, why don't we make a plan that we will be something less, maybe 4 or 5 billion people or whatever it is. I'm not saying… this is not about elimination of people, I'm sorry. It is just that… this is just that reproduction also should be a conscious process among human beings. We seem to understand this about every other creature. In Africa, we say there are too many elephants and we cull them. When we know this, that a certain habitat can only accommodate that many people, what this planet can accommodate, a responsible evaluation can be made, and we can plan for the next few centuries that we will maintain it at this level. And of course, human behavior has to be changed. But changing human aspiration, when large parts of the world have been in poverty for last few generations, now controlling their aspirations with ecological philosophy is not going to work. But very easily we can bring about awareness to control population if everybody comes together, political leaders, social leaders, religious leaders, if everybody comes together, it is very much possible. As women get more and more educated, naturally the reproductive age is… when the childbearing age is being pushed, it needs to be pushed further because today, average in most nations, people are living over 70, 75 years of age, which was not the fact just 50 years ago. So having said that, it's important at any given time, 3 generations of people exist. Maybe here and there a 4 is okay, but when 5 generations of people exist in the same time, definitely there'll be an overload and we cannot manage it. So without reducing the number of feet on the human feet on the planet, you cannot reduce the human footprint. Please let this be not misunderstood. We are not talking about eliminating any human being or any creature for that matter. We don't want even a single microbial life to go. But reproduction can be… the reproduction of other creatures need to go up. The reproduction of human beings need to come down if we genuinely want an ecological solution, because in the last 70 years, 67% of the vertebrate life on the planet has disappeared. 82% of the biomass insects have disappeared. 92% of freshwater aquatic life has disappeared. What is our plan really? If we go like this, inevitably we'll come to a place where nature will make the corrections, and that's going to be very cruel for human populations on the planet.
We understand that problem, and we see the population line growing, and on top of it, the consumption growing, and we're not… How do we transition from a consumption economy, which is where we are right now, about consumption or consumer economy, to an economy of more meaningful consciousness? You have used the word consciousness, which we use a lot, and a happier economy, because the population unfortunately keeps growing up. We're not doing anything to control the growth of the population.
See, population is one issue, but about consumption. See, we have built an economic engine where it's always about more. Growth means more. When we understand growth as more, how do you control it? Whose business should be controlled, tell me, yours or mine? There's going to be a fight, because Western nations, developed nations have reached a certain level of consumption and they're still increasing their consumption, but they're asking poorer nations to control their consumption. How will it happen? As I said, 5, 6 generations of people have been in extreme poverty. It is only now they're finding their feet. You cannot control their aspirations, you can give as much teaching as you want, I'm telling you. I know people, I'm involved with people, millions of people, I'm in touch with them. You cannot control their aspiration. You can minimally do it, that is like putting a Band-Aid for a cancer that you have. Right now, this is a ecological situation on the planet is in a cancerous condition. It is not a small bruise that you have, it is a massive thing.
Yes.
So when it will play up in a big way, I think in about 15 to 25 years, it will play up in a very big way, that it will tell on human life in a massive way. So, trying to control this, control that by giving awareness and teachings to people is going to make incremental changes. It will not make massive change. I'm not saying it should not be done, it should be done, because people getting involved in it, engaged in it is very, very important. But without the necessary policy, this is not going to change, because if the government doesn't invest in it, that means we have no intention really, we only are teaching and preaching. We don't have real intention. If real intention has to be expressed, the government should do it. Government should do it means which government will do it? Should I make my country poor or your country poor? This is the question always, because somebody else is running away on the race. So, to bring this awareness to the entire leadership on the planet is I've been working on this for 40 years now. To some extent it's worked, but unless world bodies really act, unless nations get together, unless leaders in the world begin to speak this language, which may make them lose elections for all you know, because very few nations will appreciate that, because people are still in that mode. Their ideal is, I'm sorry, I'm using examples like this. Right now, almost everybody in the world is aspiring to live like an American person, an American citizen, because they watch Hollywood movies and they think that's the way to live, that is the ideal life. The Living Earth statistics clearly says, if the 8 billion people we have on this planet must have what an average American citizen has already, if everybody should have that much, it will take 4.5 planets to provide that. We have only half a planet left. Half we have used up in the last 1.5 centuries. So, how do you do it? Who should roll it back? Everybody is talking about rolling it back, and people compare, you have occupied a large nation in the last century or 2 centuries, and now you say that, you must reduce it, our emissions are like this, you reduce it. But who took the emissions to that level? Now if emissions are to be controlled, should it be per capita or should it be nation-wise? What is it? What is the fair way? We are not even able to arrive at that. Meetings and meetings, conferences and conferences are happening. These conventions and conferences are going on, I'm not against it, it's very needed, this dialogue is needed, but there must be a responsibility that we must arrive at something. We can't just be talking about it forever, because this talking is a distraction and we will not do what we have to do and bring disaster upon ourselves.
Well, Sadhguru, listen to your answers. It seems that the only option is to pressure our governments, businesses, and leaders to change their conscience and act. Is that what, in your experience, because you have spoken in the United Nations, in the World Economic Forum, how do we, what's the role of the governments that you would like them to be, especially in the safe soil, in the soil problem, in all these problems that you have mentioned?
See, I don't believe in pressuring the government, because under pressure nobody performs efficiently. That is true for you, that is true for everybody, isn't it?
Yes.
So pressure is not the point. The point is just this. See, there is a democratic structure in most nations today. A democratic structure means, suppose you get elected as a prime minister or president of a nation, you have 4 years or maximum 5 years. What is it in Spain, 5 or 4?
4.
4 years. So you have a 4-year term. Is it 4 years or 5 years? In America it's 4 years. India it's 5 years. Anyway, 4 or 5 years, this is the average in every nation. Now if you're elected for 4 to 5 years period, if you start doing something that will bear result in 10, 15 or 20 years' time, I'm telling you, you already lost the election. So it's very important that people stand up and speak that we are interested in the long-term well-being of this nation. We are interested in the future of our children. This expression has not happened. If 60% of the electorate expresses this, every government will take those steps. This is what I'm bringing about through the Save Soil movement. Fortunately, in 100 days, we gathered the support of over 3.91 billion people, which is nearly 60%.
Wow.
So,
That's
when
impressive.
60% of the population says we are concerned about long-term well-being, everybody needs to understand if you plan long-term, there will be some short-term shortcomings will be there. If people say, I'm willing to go through this little hardship to achieve that, only then government can do it. Just putting pressure, where will they go? Their economies will collapse. Once the economy collapses, then again people will protest and put pressure. That's not going to work. See, people need to understand, democracy is not a spectator sport. It is not about you and me protesting and putting pressure. It is about you and me standing up and saying, we are with you. You take long-term steps, we are with you. If this awareness is not built in the world, fortunately, to a large extent it is happening that today 81 nations have signed up and they are putting a process of bringing about soil policies, and many nations, including United States, Germany, European Union has started a consultative process. China is doing a first time in 40 years, is doing a soil survey. India has invested $2.4 billion for soil in 13 river basins. Like this, things are beginning to happen, but still it's not rapid enough. See, if the most important thing we need to understand is in democracies, this is a problem. If we say, see, this is what needs to be done, because people are not with them most of the time for long-term policies, they will deliver a half a baby. A half a baby is not a half a solution. Half a baby is a nuisance. If you don't have a baby, no problem. If you have a full baby, it is wonderful. Half a baby is a big nuisance. This will inevitably happen in democracies unless people stand up and strongly say, we are with you. Doesn't matter what party you are, what you are, if you take long-term steps for the future of our children, we are with you. This has to be expressed by at least 60% of the adult population, which has not happened in a single country till now. But for the first time, the Save Soil movement is gathering this kind of momentum. It's wonderful, but still I feel if you wait for too long, that will also dissipate. It is important it happens, but fortunately, 81 nations are working on their policies. In India, we are very close to completing a soil policy development and budgetary requirements. And United States allocated $8.5 billion, Germany allocated some $4.5 billion, India allocated $2.4 billion. UAE and Saudi are doing phenomenal work, but they are working in most harsh conditions. You know, they are trying to transform desert into agriculture. That's not easy and simple, but they are doing it because they have the necessary money and infrastructure to do those things. But the biggest worry is the African continent. As you know, being in Spain, everybody wants to come from Africa. Why? Because finding food itself has become a big problem. If their lands were rich and they could feed their families well, why would they end up in south of Spain?
I think it's a long message, very powerful, and I stick to the long-term vision. I think that's critical in democracies to change from short-time vision to long-term vision. But sometimes I'm wondering, with all these problems that came about, like the Ukraine war, inflation, global warming, is there… the world has real time and resources to commit to these problems, including the soil situation, the soil problem?
I'm not trying to belittle the impact of war on any given nation, because war is a terrible thing, which we thought we won't repeat this mistake again and again, but we are continuing to do it. When World War I happened, we formed League of Nations and said, this is the end of war on this planet, we are not going to do it again. Within 20 years, you were itching for the next war, and number two happened. And then we made United Nations and we said we are never again going to fight. From 1944, how many wars have happened? How much more have we invested in military equipment and arms and armaments and technologies, best technologies going into military, all this happening. Now we're talking about Ukraine, but Ukraine is just a recent happening. Since 21st century began, since 2000, when 21st century began, everybody says this is the age of technology, these wars were all the problems of 20th century people, we are not going to have wars, we don't even believe in nationality, whatever, all this stuff happened, young people, millennials talking this. Well, in 21st century, how many wars have happened? How many nations have been reduced to rubble? And it continues to happen. One thing we need to understand is, if we are not if we are not childish or juvenile about this, if we are really grown-up adults, we must understand this, that if, let us say you and me, I have invested in buying, let us say buying or making 100 varieties of weapons, do you believe if you are my neighbor, I will never use it on you? Do you believe that?
No.
Why am I investing on all this? Someday I intend to use it. On whom is the question? Where is the question, isn't it? When it happens far away, we think it doesn't matter. When it happens close to our homes, then we are scared. This is not the way. I'm saying you're asking, with all these things, do we have the necessary financial strength to invest in soil? That is a disastrous way of looking at it. I'm saying, Why can't all the nations together, Spain can initiate this, maybe, I will be with you, and we can bring India into this picture very easily. All I'm saying is, why can't we take a stance? At least where we are with arms and armaments in terms of technology and capability, we will put a cap here. No new technology should go into military equipment. Why can't we at least take a stance like this? Because the amount of money that's going into it, the amount of resource that's going into it in every country is criminal. And believing that I will invest so much and I will not use it is again foolish, it's naive. So even the nuclear weapons, you're not supposed to utter the N-word, but I'm using it, I'm telling you, when we have nuclear weapons, do you believe it'll never be used? If it's not going to be ever be used, let's dismantle it. No, we hold it because we intend to use it. What makes us use it is a different question. But when we hold it, we intend to use it. Now we are talking about, no, this is a deterrent. Well, if everybody dismantles, there's no need for a deterrent. Now, I'm not saying trying to form a new nuclear policy right here in an interview, no, that's not what I'm trying to do. All I'm saying is, our intentions are not clear. Our intentions are still very mushy. When we are troubled, we'll talk about it, otherwise we'll go on with the same things. So if we are really serious about it, where is the money? Well, if everybody just holds back 5 years of investment on military equipment, you have enough money and more to fix the ecology.
No question. It comes to another concern that we have. I mean, of course the resources are there and the time can be there, but it's a shift in consciousness that you have talked about. How do we do that shift in consciousness and pass from we break the chain of selfishness, because at the end money and all this involvement and all this behind is selfishness, is the need to make more. How do we break this change to pass from me or I to the we stand together?
Oh, see, I will become extremely unpopular, but what to do, this is me. See, selfishness can be just about, I want to be well, I don't care what happens to you. This is one level of selfishness. Next level of selfishness is, me and my family should be well, I don't care what happens to the rest of the world. Next level of selfishness is, me and my whatever next identity, my society, my community should be well. What happens to somebody else is not my problem. Next level is, me and my nation should be well, what happens to the rest of the world is not my problem. So I'm saying, by increasing the size of your selfishness, which we call as we, life gets more dangerous and more expensive. If you are an individual, how selfish could you be? How much could you eat? But when we make this a collective process, it will go. So one important thing is, selfishness is not the problem, because the nature of life is selfish. How can you be selfless? It's only an idea. Nobody is selfless. Right now, I want you to be well. This is also my selfishness because I want it. So, essentially the problem is we have drawn boundaries. There's only one crime in human existence, that there are boundaries and boundaries. Boundaries of individuality, boundaries of family, boundaries of community, nationality, race, religion, all kinds of boundaries, all right? Continental, now Now when boundaries are there, when we act, clashing of the boundaries will inevitably happen. Just a question of time, when it happens. Sooner or later depends on who is leading the show, but it will inevitably happen. Have we managed to avoid it in the last 1,000 years, I'm asking? We're clashing and clashing, so isn't that enough for us to understand the way we are approaching it is wrong? So, instead of looking at selflessness, which is just an ideal which nobody has achieved, I'm saying, make your selfishness universal. I want to be well and I want every life to be well, all right? This is my selfishness. I want this planet to be well because this is my planet, not because it's yours. So I'm saying, instead of talking about principles and ideals which nobody has ever achieved, let us expand who we are. If we expand who we are, if everybody is within my boundary, then it is much better. How would this happen? This is the significance of being human, that all creatures on the planet go about building boundaries because it's instinctual within them. See, for example, right now dogs have been domesticated largely. I don't know how it is in Spain, if there are any still some stray dogs on the street in villages and stuff like that. If there are, if you observe them, every 2 minutes they're going around peeing all over the place. Why are they doing it? Because as a carnivorous animal, it's its instinct to fix boundary, which was relevant. If it lived in a jungle, as packs of dogs, fixing that boundary was important, otherwise unnecessary clashes happened, because they're instinctual. Anybody outside my pack is a natural enemy. But are we not still behaving like that? Anybody who doesn't belong to my identity of a nation or a race or a religion is a natural enemy. We are still in that level of evolution, unfortunately. So the idea of becoming human is just this. There are two levels of brain within the human being. There's a reptilian brain, which is always trying to fix boundaries, and there is a cerebral cortex or there is a consciousness, which doesn't go by this. What is the basis of this? See, most of your intelligence, your body is the body of memory. There is evolutionary memory, there is genetic memory, karmic memory, articulate, inarticulate forms of memory, conscious and unconscious forms of memory. Everything is memory. Every cell in your body holds more memory, 1,000,000 times more memory than your brain can hold, because how your forefathers were 1,000 years ago, every cell in your body still remembers, isn't it? Your great-great-great-grandfather, what kind of nose he had, you may not remember, but it sits on your face, that means the body remembers. So, this is a body of memory. Physical body is a body of memory. The more identified we are with our physical bodies, the more memory bound. What's wrong with memory? Nothing wrong with memory, because that is the basis of our survival, that is what enriches our life, so many aspects to it. But memory is a boundary. So if I look at you, if you are in my memory, I say, oh, this is my friend. If you're not in my memory, I say, I don't know, this guy is a stranger, he could be anything, all right? So, memory is a good possibility, wonderful thing for us to survive and enrich our life to some extent. But memory is also a boundary. So the most important thing is this, there is a dimension of intelligence within us, which doesn't have an iota of memory. The moment a human being touches this one way or the other, the moment you touch it, there is a sense of universality about your existence. This needs to happen. Will it happen to every human being within the next few years? No. At least it needs to happen to the leadership. If the leaders begin to think beyond boundaries, solutions are plenty. There is no problem for solutions, there is enough solutions for every problem that we have. The problem is, we are still thinking instinctually like a pack of dogs that this is my group, beyond this everybody is my enemy. We are looking at life like this. It's after World War II, after the bitterness of World War II, when the European Union was formed, really I was in tears, because I don't see this as just an economic arrangement. This is a shift in consciousness.
Sure.
The people that we fought so bitterly, we are willing to, share borders with them and be with each other. I thought this was a fantastic thing. But once again, we are moving towards, breaking up in many different ways. So this has to change, means there has to be a shift in the leadership's consciousness. Is that a possibility? Very much a possibility. Will we work for it? That's a question mark. Because what kind of world we live in our times, this is our time on the planet, what kind of world we live in is determined by us, either determined by our apathy or action.
No question. I have one last question, which is, can the process of raising the collective consciousness be propelled so we don't fall into the disasters we're heading to, because it seems that the cycle is repeating again, because we're breaking apart boundaries, excess of growth in population. I mean, nature is about to collapse. We're seeing all these dangers. We need a very quick shift in the collective consciousness. You mentioned the leaders, but it might be in the collective consciousness that we need to create this change. Is that possible to propel?
Yes, very much possible, because see, this is the first time, this is the very first time in the history of humanity that you can sit in Spain, I can sit in United States and talk to each other. When was this possible? Never was it possible. We can sit here right now and talk to the entire world. This was never possible. This is the very first time in human history. We should not take this lightly. Many great beings have come. When they spoke, hardly 10 people could hear them. This is the first time we can reach the world. When we have such a power, such technologies and platforms where we can reach the entire world, what are we putting out there? All kinds of trash. But if we invest on this, definitely at this time, if we do not change humanity, at this time if we do not create the world that we want to live in, then it shows that we don't care enough, that's all. As a part of this, like if I can go little off and tell you, I don't know how serious the audience is, we can joke with them.
No,
Am I okay?
Que si se pueden reír. Yeah, very happy. No, they're listening.
In 2003 or 4, when first this internet thing was just beginning and search engines are beginning to work and stuff, I was in our office here in United States, and everybody was looking at the internet. I never have the time to browse or do anything. So I asked, what are people looking for? So some guy who's supposed to be an expert on these kind of things, he said, Sadhguru, about 70% of the content is pornography. I said, what, 70%? When you have the ability to reach the world, what goes out first is pornography. Then I asked one more guy who's supposed to be a higher level of expert. He says, yes, Sadhguru, somewhere around there. Then I thought, this is not fair. What is this? If we have the capability to reach the entire world, we will throw out filthy things. And they said some 8 or 10% of that, 8 or 12% of that, something like that, is child pornography. This is what we will do. In that year, somebody was telling me, some 1.2 million children below 15 years were sold online, something like that. So if we get a powerful technology, we will sell our children. When we sell our children for some dirty work, that means we've hit the bottom. There's no further place to go. This really, for a human being, there's no further place to go when we start selling our children, knowing fully well what will be done with them. So I was just thinking, what can we do when there's such a powerful technology? Then somebody told me, Sadhguru, every day about 100,000 people, this is I'm talking nearly 19 years ago, 100,000 people are typing out the word spiritual. I said, really, just type it out, let's see what comes. The first thing that came out is a spa in Mexico. The second thing that came out is a call girl in Northern California. Because there is something called as SEO, you use the word spiritual, spiritual, spiritual 100 times in your whatever nonsense you're saying, you are the first one to come up. And I said, this is not fair. If some 100,000 people are looking for something for their inner well-being, what comes out is a call girl. This is not the right thing. She can advertise her stuff in her own way, I have nothing against her, but that is not what should be coming up. That is when I decided in 2005-6, in 2006 I made up my mind, we will go online. So today in 2021, our video reach has been about 2.6 billion people.
2.6 billion.
So this has never happened before. I'm not trying to brag about ourselves. All I'm saying is, there is a longing in people for good things. Nobody is providing those good things. That's a problem. Because people think there is only market for the negative. No, there is enormous market for the well-being. People are very, very eager to know. It's incredible, especially in India these days, what I am seeing is 8, 10, 12-year-old children, they are all listening to spiritual talks. Never before was this possible, I'm telling you. When I was 15 years of age, could anybody make me listen to a spiritual talk? No way. But today, 8, 10-year-olds are listening by themselves, they're searching it out by themselves online and listening to it. So, even if I have to tell you, this is this is the 40th year since I started teaching. So, when I started, if I conduct a program with 100 people, 85% of the people came for health benefits only. Only 8 to 10% of the people came wanting to know something about themselves. Today, nearly 90% of the people are coming to know something about themselves. Only about 6 to 8% are coming for health benefits. This is an incredible change in the human population and human consciousness, that first of all, people today understand what is evolution. I was here in United States last year, and at that time somebody asked me, a journalist asked me, Sadhguru, in the East, in India, there's so many sages and saints always coming up generation after generation, who represent human consciousness. Who do you think in the Western Hemisphere is the biggest leader for consciousness? Without batting an eyelid, I said Charles Darwin. He said, no, he's a biologist. It doesn't matter what you call him. He planted the idea in your mind that you can evolve. This is spirituality, this is consciousness. Somebody else told you, this is the way it is, you're made like this and that's all there is nothing more you can do about it. That's a different world. Charles Darwin put the idea that a pig can become an elephant, a goat can become a giraffe, you can become… monkey can become you, and you can become something else. The possibility of you evolving is open to you. Once you understand you can evolve, once an individual human being understands that I can evolve and become something higher than what I am, believe me, nobody wants to be lower, everybody wants to be higher. What is higher in a given society? If you are in a local area, a violent area, the biggest bicep is the highest thing, all right? If you are in the international arena, the biggest bomb is the highest thing. If you are in the financial market, biggest power pocket is the highest thing. So what is highest may vary from person to person according to their exposure. But is there anybody who wants to be low, not high? Nobody wants to be low, everybody wants to be high because that's a natural aspiration. So once they realize that life can evolve into a greater possibility, nobody will deny themselves of that. But that has not sunk in sufficiently. People need to realize that if they strive, they can evolve. If a monkey can become like this, definitely this can become something better.
So I would like to mention, because it's very good, it makes me feel good, that you're seeing an awakening in people in spite of the difficulties we're living today, because 2.4 billion people that you're reaching and you're changing is a large number. So you see this awakening process.
No, this is not a large number, there are 8 billion people. Because the question is not about numbers for me, the question is about humanity. This happened to me when I was just 25 years of age. One day I sat down and suddenly I was bursting with ecstasy, every cell in my body was bursting with blissfulness, dripping bliss. So I thought about it, what's happening to me? 5, 6 weeks I spent looking at myself, what is happening? Then I realized, if I just keep myself a little away from my psychological process, the thought and emotion that's going on within us, suddenly I'm completely blissed out. So I experimented in so many ways and I confirmed that this is all it is, that if I can create a little distance between myself and my psychological process, then I'm blissed out. Then I thought, this is it, I'm going to make the whole world blissful. On that day, the world's population was 5.6 billion people. So I sat down and made a plan In 2.5 years, I will make the whole world blissful. Here I am, 40 years.
But you're doing it. You're doing it, Sadhguru. Namaskara. You're doing it. You're lifting so many souls. Thank you very much. And I would like to mention today that I know you don't like rewards, but you're being awarded the Mother Earth, Cambio 16 Mother Earth Prize this year for all your actions in Conscious Planet, Safe Soil, in uplifting souls in this moment. Thank you very much for your beautiful labor, mission and task. We're honored to have you